Rain hammered the hospital windows like bullets as Sophia Mercer stumbled toward the exit, three cracked ribs screaming with every breath. She'd signed herself out against medical advice. No insurance, no money, no choice. But when she dialed home, the apartment sat silent. Her 12-year-old daughter Lila was gone. And Sophia knew exactly where she'd run, straight to the Bellucci estate, the fortress mansion where Sophia had scrubbed floors invisibly for 5 years, owned by the most feared man in New York's criminal underworld, Dante Bellucci. When Sophia arrived half-conscious at his door, she found Lila wrapped in cashmere blankets in Dante's private kitchen, bruises vivid on her small wrists from trying to shield her mother during another beating. Dante stood beside the child, cold and immaculate, a hurricane in tailored wool. The moment he saw Sophia's battered face, something inside him shattered. "You're under my protection now," he said quietly. "Both of you. Like that, hit the like button, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels, and stay until the end because what happens next will break you." Aki. The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway made Sophia Mercer's vision swim. Every step sent jagged pain through her rib cage, sharp enough to steal breath. The nurse at the discharge desk had looked at her like she was insane when Sophia refused to stay overnight for observation. 3 cracked ribs. Severe bruising across her back and shoulders. Possible concussion. The doctor's voice had been flat, professional, careful not to ask the questions everyone already knew the answers to. "You really shouldn't leave," the nurse said again, holding the clipboard like a shield. "Not in your condition." Sophia signed the form anyway. Her hand shook so badly the signature looked like a child's scrawl. "I need to get home." "Is someone picking you up?" "Yes," Sophia lied. Outside, the rain hit her like a wall. Cold, relentless. The kind of October storm that turned Manhattan streets into rivers. Sophia didn't have an umbrella. Didn't have cab fare. Didn't have anything except the clothes she'd been wearing when Travis Kane had put his fist through her ribs 6 hours earlier. She walked 4 blocks to the nearest subway station, each breath a fresh lesson in agony. Commuters stared. A woman in a business suit looked away quickly, guilt flickering across her face. Nobody helped. Nobody ever did. The train ride home took 23 minutes. Sophia counted every second, her phone pressed against her ear, listening to the apartment landline ring and ring and ring into empty air. Lila should have answered by now. Lila always answered. Panic tasted like copper in Sophia's mouth. She tried Lila's cell phone next, the cheap prepaid she'd bought her daughter last Christmas. It went straight to voicemail. Dead battery or turned off. Either way, silence. The train lurched. Sophia's ribs screamed. She bit down on her sleeve to keep from making noise. When she finally reached the apartment building in Washington Heights, the stairs felt like mountains. 5th floor walk-up, no elevator. By the 3rd landing, Sophia was crying from the pain, gripping the railing with both hands, pulling herself upward step by step. The apartment door was unlocked. That was the first wrong thing. Sophia always locked the door. Always. Even when she ran out to grab milk. Even when Travis was passed out drunk on the couch. Especially then. She pushed inside. Lila? Empty living room. Blankets still tangled on the couch where Sophia had been sleeping for the past 6 months, ever since she'd stopped sharing a bed with a man whose hands had turned into weapons. The kitchen was dark. Lila's bedroom door stood open. The bed was made. Lila never made her bed. Sophia's phone was still in her hand. She dialed Lila's number again, and this time she heard it, faint, muffled, coming from inside the closet. Sophia yanked the door open and found Lila's cell phone on the floor, screen cracked, battery dead. Beside it was a note written in Lila's careful handwriting on a torn piece of notebook paper. "Mom, I went to Mr. Bellucci's house. I'm sorry. I had to. Love you." Sophia's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the note trembling in her hands, and for a moment the pain in her ribs was nothing compared to the terror clawing through her chest. The Bellucci estate. Dante Bellucci. Sophia had worked at that mansion for 5 years. Housekeeper. Invisible. The kind of employee who scrubbed toilets and polished silver and never made eye contact with the man who owned the place. She'd needed the job desperately after her late husband died, leaving her with a mountain of medical debt and a 6-year-old daughter to raise alone. The Bellucci household paid well, paid in cash, didn't ask questions. Everyone in the neighborhood knew what Dante Bellucci was. Crime lord, kingpin, the man who controlled half the underground economy in New York through fear and calculated brutality. People whispered his name like a curse, crossed the street when his motorcade passed. Sophia had seen enough during her years working in that house to know the whispers were true, and now her 12-year-old daughter had run straight to him. Sophia forced herself to stand. She had to move, had to think. The Bellucci estate was in Greenwich, Connecticut, an hour north by train, maybe more in this weather. She didn't have a car, didn't have cab money, didn't have... Her phone rang. Unknown number. Sophia answered, hand shaking. Hello? Ms. Mercer. The voice was male, calm, with the faint trace of an Italian accent. Not Dante, one of his men. Marco, maybe. The head of security. Your daughter is here. She's safe. Sophia's knees buckled again. She caught herself against the dresser. Is she hurt? No, but you need to come get her. I'm coming now. I don't have a car. A car is already waiting downstairs. The line went dead. Sophia looked out the window. 5 stories down, idling at the curb in the rain, was a black Mercedes sedan with tinted windows. The kind of car that cost more than Sophia had earned in her entire life. She grabbed her coat and ran. The driver didn't speak. Didn't look at her, just opened the rear door, waited for Sophia to collapse into the leather seat, and pulled smoothly into traffic. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, gun oil, maybe. Sophia tried not to think about it. The drive took 53 minutes. Sophia watched the city lights blur past, her phone clutched in both hands, her ribs throbbing with every pothole. The driver took back roads through Westchester, avoiding highways, moving fast but careful. Professional. When they finally turned onto the private road leading to the Bellucci estate, Sophia felt her stomach twist. She'd walked this driveway 100 times, always through the service entrance, always before dawn. She'd never come through the front gates. The gates were massive, wrought iron, 12 feet tall, topped with security cameras. They opened silently as the Mercedes approached. Beyond them, the driveway curved through manicured gardens toward a mansion that looked like it belonged in a European postcard. Stone facade, marble columns, windows glowing warm against the rain. The car stopped at the front entrance. The driver got out, opened Sophia's door, and waited. Sophia climbed out, her body screaming in protest. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, cold and misty. The front door of the mansion opened before she could knock. Marco stood in the doorway, 60, gray-haired, built like a boxer who'd never stopped training. He looked Sophia up and down, his expression carefully neutral. Ms. Mercer. Where's my daughter? Kitchen. Follow me. The inside of the mansion was exactly as Sophia remembered. Polished marble floors, oil paintings and gilded frames, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. But walking through the front hall as a guest instead of an employee felt wrong. Disorienting. Like trespassing. Marco led her through a side corridor toward the private wing of the house. Sophia had cleaned these rooms 1,000 times, but never when anyone was home. The kitchen was at the end of the hall, a massive chef's space with restaurant-grade appliances and a breakfast nook overlooking the gardens. Lila was sitting at the nook table, wrapped in a cashmere blanket that probably cost more than Sophia's rent. Her dark hair was damp, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Sophia, she started to stand, then froze. Because Dante Bellucci was standing beside her. Sophia's breath caught. She'd seen Dante countless times over the years, always from a distance, always in passing. He was the kind of man you noticed without meaning to, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman statues, dark hair going silver at the temples, sharp cheekbones, eyes the color of winter storms. But she'd never been this close to him before, never been in the same room when he was actually looking at her. And the way he was looking at her now made Sophia's pulse stutter. His gaze moved over her face, her bruised jaw, the way she was holding her ribs, and something in his expression shifted, hardened. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Miss Mercer, Dante said quietly. His voice was smooth, controlled, but there was steel underneath. Sit down before you fall down. Sophia didn't move. I need to take my daughter home. You need medical attention. I already went to the hospital. And they let you leave like this? Dante's eyes narrowed. Someone should be fired. I signed myself out. Sophia's voice cracked. She hated how weak she sounded. I just need to get Lila and go. Dante didn't respond. He looked at Marco instead. Get Dr. Reeves. Sir, now. Marco left without another word. Sophia tried again. Mr. Bellucci, I appreciate... Sit down. It wasn't a request. Dante pulled out a chair at the table, his movements precise, controlled. Waiting. Sophia sat. Her legs gave her no choice. Lila immediately grabbed her hand. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's okay, baby. Sophia squeezed Lila's fingers, trying to keep her voice steady. It's okay. You're not in trouble. I didn't know what else to do. Lila's words came out in a rush, tears streaming down her face. Travis came home and he was so angry, and you weren't answering your phone, and I heard him breaking things, and I got scared, and I remembered you said Mr. Bellucci's house was safe, and... Breathe, Sophia whispered. Just breathe. But she was looking at Lila's wrists as she said it, at the bruises there, dark purple, finger-shaped. Sophia's vision went white at the edges. He grabbed you. Lila nodded, crying harder. I tried to stop him from hurting you. I tried to pull him off, and he threw me against the wall and told me to get out, and I ran and I didn't know where else to go. Sophia couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The pain in her ribs was nothing compared to the rage tearing through her chest. Where is he now? Dante's voice cut through the air like a blade. Sophia looked up. Dante was staring at Lila's bruises, his jaw tight, his hands resting flat on the table like he was physically restraining himself from moving. I don't know, Sophia said. Probably passed out at the apartment. Name. What? His full name. Sophia hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to lie, to deflect, to protect Travis the way she'd been protecting him for months, making excuses, hiding bruises, pretending everything was fine. But Lila was still crying, still holding her wrist like it hurt. Travis Kane, Sophia said. Dante pulled out his phone and stepped away from the table. He made a call, brief, clipped, too quiet for Sophia to hear. When he returned, his expression was unreadable. Dr. Reeves will be here in 10 minutes, Dante said. She'll examine both of you. That's not necessary. It wasn't a question. Sophia opened her mouth to argue, but Dante's gaze pinned her in place. Not cruel, not threatening, just absolute. You worked for me for 5 years, Dante said quietly. You were loyal, discreet. You never asked for anything. So I'm going to do something for you now, and you're not going to fight me on it. He glanced at Lila, then back at Sophia. You and your daughter are staying here tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk about what happens next. But right now, you're going to let the doctor check your ribs, you're going to eat something, and you're going to sleep somewhere safe. I can't just... Yes, Dante said. You can. Sophia didn't have the strength to argue. Didn't have the strength for anything except sitting in that chair, holding Lila's hand, trying not to fall apart completely. Dr. Reeves arrived 12 minutes later. A sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a medical bag and no patience for nonsense. She examined Sophia first, confirmed the cracked ribs, rewrapped them properly, gave her prescription-strength painkillers and strict orders to rest. Then she turned to Lila. The bruises on Lila's wrists were bad but not broken. Dr. Reeves documented everything with photographs, her face carefully neutral, and left a written report with Dante before she left. By the time the exam was over, Sophia could barely keep her eyes open. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving nothing but exhaustion and pain. Marco appeared again. Guest rooms are ready, sir. Dante nodded. He looked at Sophia. Can you walk? Yes. She couldn't. Not really. But she tried anyway, forcing herself to stand, and immediately her vision tilted sideways. Dante caught her before she hit the floor. His hands were steady, careful, supporting her weight without jarring her ribs. Sophia's face ended up pressed against his chest, and for one disorienting second all she could register was the scent of expensive fabric and the solid warmth of him. I've got you, Dante said quietly. Sophia wanted to argue, wanted to push away, wanted to be strong enough to stand on her own. But she wasn't, so she let him help her. Marco led the way upstairs. The guest wing was on the second floor, down a hallway lined with more oil paintings and antique furniture. He opened a door to a bedroom that looked like something out of a luxury hotel. King-sized bed, fireplace, ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub. Your daughter's room is next door, Marco said, connected through the bathroom. Lila was already being led inside by one of the house staff, a middle-aged woman Sophia vaguely recognized from her years working here. Kind face, gentle voice. She was showing Lila the bed, the closet full of extra blankets, asking if she needed anything. Sophia wanted to follow, wanted to tuck Lila in herself, but her body was shutting down, ribs screaming, head swimming. Dante guided her to the bed. Lie down. Sophia obeyed. The mattress felt like a cloud. She closed her eyes and heard Dante moving around the room, adjusting the thermostat, pulling curtains closed, setting a glass of water on the nightstand. If you need anything, Dante said, there's a phone on the desk. Dial 9. Someone will answer. Sophia opened her eyes. Dante was standing near the door, silhouetted against the hallway light, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Why are you helping us? Sophia whispered. Dante was quiet for a long moment, then, because no one helped me when I needed it. He left before Sophia could respond. She lay in the dark, listening to the rain against the windows, and tried to make sense of everything that had just happened, tried to plan what came next, tried to think, but exhaustion dragged her under before she could finish a single thought. Sights. Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a moment of pure panic before she remembered where she was. The Bellucci estate. She sat up too fast. Her ribs punished her immediately, sending sharp pain through her chest. The prescription bottle Dr. Reeves had left was on the nightstand. Sophia dry swallowed 2 pills and forced herself to breathe slowly until the pain dulled to something manageable. The clock on the wall read 9:47 a.m. Sophia never slept past 6. She stumbled to the bathroom, marble tile, heated floors, a shower with 6 different heads, and found a note taped to the mirror in elegant handwriting. Fresh clothes in the closet, breakfast downstairs whenever you're ready. Marco's handwriting, probably. Sophia opened the closet. Inside were women's clothes in her exact size, jeans, sweaters, undergarments still in packaging. Someone had gone shopping. Sometime between last night and this morning, someone had driven to a store and bought her an entire wardrobe. She wanted to be angry about it, wanted to feel insulted. Instead, she just felt tired. She showered carefully, avoiding her ribs, and dressed in jeans and a soft gray sweater that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck. Then she checked on Lila. The connecting bathroom door was unlocked. Sophia pushed it open and found Lila's room empty, the bed neatly made. Panic spiked again, irrational, immediate, before Sophia heard voices downstairs. Lila's voice, laughing. Sophia followed the sound. The kitchen smelled like fresh bread and coffee. Lila was sitting at the breakfast nook again, wearing new clothes too, purple hoodie, clean jeans, and talking animatedly with an older man in a chef's coat. He was showing her how to braid dough, his hands patient, his accent thick and Italian. Like this, Piccola, the chef was saying. 3 strands, over and under, see? Lila tried, her tongue poking out in concentration. It keeps falling apart. That's how you learn. Try again. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching, her chest tight with something that wasn't pain. Lila looked happy. When was the last time Sophia had seen her daughter look happy? The chef noticed her first. Ah, Ms. Mercer, good morning. Sit, sit. I'll bring coffee. I can get it. Sit. Apparently everyone in this house had the same approach to giving orders. Sophia sat. The chef, Antonio, she remembered his name now, poured her a cup of coffee in a delicate porcelain mug and set it in front of her with a basket of fresh pastries. You need to eat, Antonio said firmly. Doctor's orders. Dr. Reeves said that? I said that. I'm a doctor of food. Lila giggled. Sophia picked up a croissant. Still warm, flaky, and buttery, and better than anything she'd tasted in months. She ate it slowly, watching Lila work on her bread braid, and tried not to think about what happened next. Tried not to think about the apartment in Washington Heights. About Travis. About... Good morning. Sophia turned. Dante stood in the kitchen doorway, dressed in charcoal slacks and a white dress shirt, looking like he'd already been awake for hours. Probably had been. Men like him didn't sleep late. Morning, Sophia said carefully. Dante's gaze moved over her face, checking for... what? Pain? Fear? Sophia didn't know. He looked at Lila next. How's the braid coming? Terrible, Lila admitted. She's lying, Antonio said. She's a natural. Dante almost smiled. Almost. Finish up. We need to talk. He meant Sophia. She knew that. She set down her coffee and stood, ignoring the way her ribs protested. Lila can stay with Antonio, Dante added, reading her mind. Sophia nodded. She followed Dante out of the kitchen, down another hallway, into a room she'd only ever seen from the outside. His private study. It was exactly what she'd expected. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk that looked like it weighed 1,000 pounds, leather chairs, a fireplace with a portrait above it, some long-dead Bellucci ancestor glaring down at the room. Dante closed the door behind them. Sit, he said. Sophia sat. Dante didn't. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the gardens, silent for a long moment. Then, Travis Kane has a record, 2 prior domestic violence arrests, both charges dropped because the victims refused to testify. He's been fired from 4 jobs in the past 3 years. He owes $63,000 to 3 separate loan sharks, all with interest compounding daily. Sophia's stomach dropped. How do you... I had someone look into him last night. Dante turned to face her. He's dangerous, unstable, and the men he owes money to are getting impatient. That's not my problem anymore. It is if he comes after you to solve it. Sophia wanted to argue. Wanted to say Travis wouldn't do that. But she couldn't. Because he would. He'd already hit her for money. Already screamed at her for not having enough. Already... I can protect you, Dante said quietly. I don't need protection. Your daughter's bruises say otherwise. Sophia flinched. Dante crossed the room and crouched in front of her chair so they were eye level. Up close, his eyes were gray-green, sharp and unrelenting. Listen to me, Dante said. You can go back to that apartment and hope Travis doesn't kill you the next time he gets drunk. Or you can stay here until we figure out a permanent solution. I can't just... Yes, you can. Dante's voice was firm. You worked for me for 5 years. You were loyal, discreet. You never asked for anything. Let me return the favor. This isn't a favor, Sophia said. This is... what? Sophia didn't know how to finish that sentence. Didn't know what this was. Charity? Pity? Something worse? Dante stood, putting distance between them again. I'm not a good man, Miss Mercer. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. But I don't hurt women, I don't hurt children, and I don't let other men do it either. So what happens now? Now you and Lila stay here while I handle Travis Kane. Handle him how? Dante smiled, and it wasn't kind. You don't want to know. Sophia should have been terrified, should have grabbed Lila and run, but instead she heard herself saying, make sure he can never hurt us again. The words came out before she could stop them, raw, desperate. Dante's expression shifted. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe, understanding. Done, he said, just like that. One word. And Sophia knew with absolute certainty that Travis Kane's life had just ended. Not literally, probably, but close enough. Dante walked to his desk and picked up a phone. He made a call, brief, coded, impossible to follow. When he hung up, he looked at Sophia again. You'll have a security detail. Marco will coordinate. You and Lila can move freely around the estate, but don't leave the grounds without letting someone know. For how long? As long as it takes. Sophia wanted to ask more questions, wanted to demand details, but exhaustion was creeping back in, and her ribs hurt. And Lila was safe in the kitchen braiding bread dough, and for the first time in months Sophia could breathe without waiting for the next disaster. Okay, she whispered. Dante nodded. Go rest. We'll talk more later. Sophia stood and walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. Mr. Bellucci? Dante. Sophia blinked. What? Call me Dante. You're not my employee anymore. Something in Sophia's chest cracked open. She didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know what to do with any of this. Thank you, she said finally. Dante looked at her for a long moment, then, don't thank me yet. Hi, kid. 3 days passed. Sophia and Lila settled into the estate like ghosts learning to haunt new rooms. The staff treated them with careful politeness. Not quite family, not quite guests, something in between. Marco checked on them twice a day. Dr. Reeves returned to re-examine Sophia's ribs. Antonio kept feeding Lila in the kitchen, teaching her to make pasta from scratch, bread, sauces, everything. And Dante watched from a distance. Sophia felt his presence even when she couldn't see him, felt his gaze tracking her across rooms, felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. It should have been uncomfortable. It wasn't. On the fourth day, Sophia woke to voices in the hallway. She crept to the door and listened. Completely clean, Marco was saying. No debt, no record, no connection to you whatsoever. Good, Dante's voice. And the travel arrangements? Confirmed. One-way ticket to Seattle. Job lined up. Apartment deposit paid. He leaves tomorrow. Make sure he understands the terms. He does. He signed everything. Silence. Then Dante again. If he comes back, he won't. More silence. Sophia opened the door. Both men turned. Marco's expression went carefully blank. Dante just looked at her, unreadable. It's done? Sophia asked. Yes. He's leaving New York? Permanently. Sophia should have asked how. Should have demanded details. Should have cared that Dante had clearly used threats and money, and who knows what else to make a man disappear. But all she felt was relief so overwhelming it made her knees weak. Thank you, she whispered. Dante's jaw tightened. Don't. Thank you. He stared at her. Then, quietly, You're welcome. Marco cleared his throat. I'll go check the perimeter. He left quickly. Sophia and Dante stood alone in the hallway, the morning light slanting through tall windows, the house silent around them. What happens now? Sophia asked. That depends on you. On me? You're safe. Travis is gone. You can go back to your life. Dante paused. Or you can stay. Sophia's heart stuttered. Stay? Here, until you figure out what you want to do next. I'll help you find a new apartment, a better job, whatever you need. Why? Because I can. It wasn't an answer, not really, but the way Dante was looking at her, steady, patient, like he had all the time in the world, made Sophia think maybe it was the only answer that mattered. I'll think about it, she said. Dante nodded. Then he walked past her, close enough that Sophia caught the scent of his cologne, and disappeared down the stairs. Sophia stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to understand what she was feeling, trying to understand why the idea of leaving this place felt impossible now. That night, Sophia found Dante in his study. She knocked, waited, heard his voice, "Come in," and pushed the door open. Dante was at his desk, surrounded by paperwork, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He looked up when Sophia entered, surprise flickering across his face before he controlled it. Ms. Mercer. Sophia. Dante's mouth curved. Almost a smile. Sophia. She closed the door behind her and stood awkwardly near the bookshelves, trying to figure out how to say what she'd come here to say. I want to stay, Sophia said finally. For a while, if that's still okay. It is. But I want to work. I can't just... I need to do something. I'll go crazy sitting around. Dante leaned back in his chair. What do you want to do? I don't know. Something useful. You have a college degree? Sophia blinked. How do you know that? I read your employment file when I hired you 5 years ago. Oh, Sophia had forgotten about that. English literature. Fat lot of good it did me. You could teach. I don't have a teaching license. You could get one. Sophia laughed, bitter. With what money? Dante's expression didn't change. I'll pay for it. Sophia's breath caught. What? You want to work? Fine. Enroll in a certification program. I'll cover tuition. When you're licensed, I'll help you find a position. Until then, you can help Antonio in the kitchen if you want something to do with your hands. Sophia stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you're smart. Because you're wasted scrubbing floors. Because... Dante stopped. Something shifted in his expression. Because I want to. The air in the room felt charged, electric. Sophia should have left, should have said thank you and walked away before this became something she couldn't control. Instead, she stayed. Okay, she whispered. Dante's eyes darkened. Okay. They looked at each other across the study, the fireplace crackling between them, and Sophia felt something dangerous begin to take root in her chest. Something that felt like hope. Something that felt like desire. Something that was going to destroy her if she wasn't careful. But she stayed anyway. The first week passed like a fever dream. Sophia enrolled in an online teaching certification program using the laptop Dante had someone deliver to her room, brand new, still in the box, with a note that said, "Only you'll need this." She spent mornings studying curriculum theory and pedagogy while Lila attended the private school on the estate grounds, a small academy Dante apparently funded for the children of his staff, though Sophia suspected most of those staff were actually the families of men who worked in less legal capacities. She didn't ask. Didn't want to know. Afternoons, she helped Antonio in the kitchen, learned to make fresh pasta by hand, learned the difference between a sofrito and a battuto, learned that Antonio had worked for the Bellucci family for 37 years, and remembered when Dante was an angry teenager who broke his knuckles punching walls. He was feral back then, Antonio said one afternoon, rolling out dough with practiced efficiency. His father, Dio mio, that man was a monster. Beat the boy bloody for every mistake, every perceived weakness. Sophia's hand stilled on the ravioli she was shaping. His father did that? Until Dante was old enough to fight back. Antonio's mouth pressed into a grim line. Then the old man had an accident, fell down the stairs, broke his neck. An accident. Antonio met her eyes. That's what the coroner said. Sophia looked down at the pasta dough, her stomach churning. She thought about Dante crouching in front of her chair, his voice steady and sure. "I'm not a good man, Ms. Mercer. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details." She should have been horrified. She wasn't, because she understood, in a way that made her chest ache, what it felt like to want someone dead, to imagine it, to crave it with such intensity that it stopped feeling like a sin and started feeling like survival. She'd thought it about Travis more times than she could count. "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked quietly. Antonio shrugged. "Because you look at him like you're trying to figure out if he's dangerous. And the answer is yes. But not to you." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen him kill men with his bare hands, and I've seen him sit on the floor playing cards with your daughter. Those are not the same person. With you two..." Antonio paused, choosing his words carefully. "He's trying to be someone different." Sophia didn't know what to do with that information. Didn't know how to feel about the fact that a man who'd probably murdered his own father was teaching Lila chess in the evenings and asking if she needed help with her math homework. So she did what she'd always done when things got too complicated. She focused on the work in front of her and tried not to think. But thinking was impossible when Dante was everywhere, not hovering, not controlling, just present, in ways that made Sophia's pulse stutter every time she turned around. He appeared in the kitchen while she was cooking, leaning against the counter with a glass of wine, asking about her certification coursework. He sat across from her in the library while she studied, reading his own books in silence, the only sound the crackling fireplace and turning pages. He walked the gardens with her and Lila after dinner, hands in his pockets, listening to Lila chatter about her day without interrupting. And he looked at Sophia like she was the only person in the room, every time. It was maddening. 2 weeks in, Sophia woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of raised voices downstairs. Male voices. Angry. She pulled on her robe and crept to the top of the stairs, her ribs still tender but healing. The voices were coming from Dante's study. "Cannot be serious right now." That was Marco, his calm veneer cracked. "I'm completely serious." Dante's voice, cold, final. "She's a civilian. She has a child. This is insanity. This is my decision. Your father would never, My father," Dante said, each word sharp as a blade, "is dead. I'm not him. I will never be him. And if you can't accept that, there's the door." Silence. Then Marco, quieter. "What are you doing, Dante?" "What I should have done years ago. Getting out." "Getting out?" Marco's laugh was harsh. "You think it's that simple? You think you can just walk away from this life because you found some woman and her kid and suddenly grew a conscience? Watch your mouth. You know what the families will think? What Castellano will think. They'll see weakness. They'll come for you. Let them try. And what about her? What about the girl? You think they won't use them against you?" Another long silence. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. Then Dante, so quiet Sophia almost didn't hear. That's why I need to move faster, clean up the dirty money, transition everything legitimate before anyone realizes what I'm doing. That'll take years. Then I'd better start now. Footsteps. Marco walking toward the door. Sophia pressed herself against the wall, but Marco didn't come upstairs. He went the other direction, toward the back of the house, muttering in Italian. Sophia stood in the dark hallway, her mind racing. Dante was trying to leave. Leave the violence. Leave the criminal empire. Leave everything he'd built. Because of her. Because of Lila. The realization hit her like cold water. Terrifying and thrilling and completely impossible. She should have gone back to bed. Should have pretended she hadn't heard anything. Instead, she walked downstairs and knocked on the study door. Come in. Dante was still at his desk, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking exhausted in a way Sophia had never seen before. When he saw her, something in his expression shifted. Surprise, then something darker. You should be asleep, he said. I heard voices. Dante's jaw tightened. How much did you hear? Enough. He stood, poured himself a drink from the bar cart near the window. Didn't offer her one. Just drank in silence, staring out at the dark gardens. You're leaving, Sophia said. Not a question. Trying to. Because of us. Because of a lot of things. Dante turned to face her. But yes, you're part of it. That's insane. Probably. You can't just... People don't change like that, not overnight. I'm not changing overnight. I've been thinking about this for years. You just gave me a reason to finally do it. Sophia's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to steady herself. What if it doesn't work? What if Marco's right, and people come after you? Then I'll handle it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Dante set his glass down and crossed the room until he was standing directly in front of her, close enough that Sophia could feel the heat radiating off him. I know what I am, Sophia. I know what I've done. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. But I also know that if I keep living this life, I'll end up like my father, dead or alone or both. And I don't want that anymore. What do you want? The question hung between them. Dante's gaze dropped to her mouth, then back to her eyes. You really want to know? Sophia couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Yes. You. His voice was rough, raw. I want you, and Lila, and a life where I don't have to check my car for bombs every morning, where I can sleep without a gun under my pillow, where I can... He stopped, swallowed hard. Where I can be someone worth knowing. Sophia's heart was trying to claw out of her chest. Dante, I know it's selfish. I know I have no right to want that. You've been through hell already. The last thing you need is... Sophia kissed him. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just grabbed his shirt and pulled him down and pressed her mouth to his before she could talk herself out of it. For a second, Dante froze. Then he kissed her back. It wasn't gentle, wasn't soft. It was desperate and messy, and tasted like whiskey and years of wanting things they couldn't have. Dante's hands came up to frame her face, careful of her still healing ribs, and Sophia made a sound she didn't recognize, half sob, half gasp. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he whispered. I know. You should run, take Lila and disappear and never look back. I know. So why aren't you? Sophia pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Because I'm tired of running, because Lila's happy here, because... Her voice cracked. Because when I look at you, I don't see a monster. I see someone who's trying, and maybe that's stupid. Maybe I'm fooling myself, but I don't care anymore. Dante's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You're not fooling yourself. Then prove it. How? Keep trying, keep getting out, and let me help. Sophia, I'm not fragile, Dante. I'm not some damsel who needs protecting from the truth. I've lived through hell. I can handle whatever comes next, but I need you to stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then quietly, okay. Okay? I'll stop protecting you from the truth, but you have to promise me something. What? If it gets too dangerous, if staying here puts you or Lila at risk, you leave. No arguments, no hesitation. You take her and go. Sophia wanted to argue. wanted to say she'd never leave, but the look in Dante's eyes stopped her. "Okay," she whispered. Dante kissed her again, slower this time, and Sophia let herself sink into it. Let herself feel the warmth of his hands and the solid weight of him and the impossible hope blooming in her chest. When they finally pulled apart, Dante's expression was softer, almost vulnerable. "Go back to bed," he said. "Before I do something we'll both regret." Sophia smiled despite herself. "Like what?" "Like ask you to stay." "Would that be so bad?" "Yes, because you'd say yes, and then neither of us would sleep." Heat flooded Sophia's face. She stepped back, suddenly aware of how thin her nightgown was, how close they were standing, how easy it would be to... "Good night, Dante," she said quickly. "Good night, Sophia." She left before she could change her mind, but she felt his gaze on her back all the way to the stairs. The next 3 weeks were a study in controlled chaos. Dante began systematically dismantling the violent parts of his empire, selling off territory, renegotiating deals, redirecting money into legitimate businesses, construction, real estate, import-export companies that actually imported and exported legal goods. Sophia watched it happen from the edges, learning the shape of his world through overheard phone calls and late-night meetings with lawyers and accountants. She didn't understand all of it, didn't need to. But she understood enough to know that what Dante was attempting was dangerous. Men who left the criminal underworld rarely left breathing. Marco grew increasingly tense. Other members of Dante's inner circle, men Sophia vaguely recognized from her years working here, started showing up for hushed conversations that ended with slammed doors and raised voices. But Dante didn't back down. And slowly, impossibly, it started working. Territories were sold. Debts were paid. Agreements were reached. Dante's name stopped being synonymous with violence and started being associated with construction contracts and urban development projects. The transformation was surreal, and through it all, Sophia and Dante circled each other like planets caught in gravity. Never quite colliding, never quite pulling apart. They talked for hours in the study. About books, about music, about the future. Dante told her about growing up in his father's shadow, learning to survive through brutality because kindness was punished as weakness. Sophia told him about losing her husband to cancer, about the crushing weight of medical debt, about meeting Travis during her most desperate moment and mistaking his attention for love. "I thought he was saving me," Sophia admitted one night, curled in the leather chair across from Dante's desk while rain hammered the windows. "I was so alone, so scared, and he seemed stable, safe." "When did you realize he wasn't?" "The first time he hit me, I told myself it was an accident. The second time, I told myself he was stressed. By the third time, I'd stopped making excuses. Sophia's voice broke. "I didn't know how to leave. I had no money, no family, nowhere to go. And Lila, I couldn't put her through more instability. She'd already lost her father. I thought staying was the lesser evil." Dante's expression was unreadable. "And now? Now I know there's no such thing as a lesser evil when it comes to violence. There's only survival. And sometimes survival means burning everything down and starting over." "Is that what you're doing? Starting over?" Sophia met his eyes. "I'm trying." "So am I." The air between them felt electric. "Dante, don't." His voice was rough. "Don't say whatever you're about to say. Not yet. Not until I'm sure I can keep you safe." "I don't need..." "Yes, you do. And so does Lila. And I can't." Dante stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "There are still people who want me dead, Sophia. Rivals who see my transition as weakness. Men who think they can take what I built because I'm trying to legitimize it. Until I know they're handled, I can't..." "We can't." "I understand," Sophia said quietly. But she didn't. Not really. Because every night she went to bed alone in the guest room, she felt the absence of him like a physical ache. Every morning she woke up thinking about his hands and his mouth and the way he looked at her like she was something precious. It was torture. But she waited. Because Dante was right. Lila's safety mattered more than anything else. Even this. Achette. 4 weeks after arriving at the estate, Sophia was helping Lila with a science project at the kitchen table when Marco appeared in the doorway. His expression made Sophia's stomach drop. Where's Dante? Marco asked. Meeting with his lawyers in the city. Why? Marco's jaw tightened. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where you and Lila need to pack a bag. Now. Sophia stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. What happened? Castellano's son is dead. Overdose. And Castellano thinks Dante had something to do with it. The name Castellano hit Sophia like a slap. She'd heard it before, muttered in hallways, whispered in tense phone calls. One of the old families. One of the ones Dante had been trying to distance himself from. Did he? Sophia asked. Marco's expression didn't change. Does it matter? Castellano's looking for blood, and until we sort this out, you two are targets. Mom? Lila's voice was small, scared. Sophia forced herself to breathe, to think. Where are we going? Safe house upstate. Dante's already on his way back. We move in 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Now, Sophia. She grabbed Lila's hand and ran. They packed frantically. Clothes, toiletries, Lila's schoolwork. Marco waited in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. Other men appeared. Guards Sophia recognized, all armed, all grim-faced. By the time they made it downstairs, 3 black SUVs were idling in the circular driveway. Middle car, Marco said. Stay low. Don't stop for anything. Sophia climbed in, pulling Lila close. The driver didn't speak, just pulled out fast, tires spitting gravel, while the other 2 vehicles flanked them like a protective wall. Lila was shaking. What's happening? It's okay, baby, we're just being careful. Is someone trying to hurt us? Sophia couldn't lie. Not about this. Maybe. But Mr. Bellucci's people won't let that happen. Where is he? Coming to meet us. Promise? Sophia kissed her daughter's forehead. Promise. The drive took 90 minutes. North through Westchester, then deeper into the woods until they reached a house that looked like a hunting lodge. Isolated, surrounded by trees, with enough security cameras to film a movie. Marco ushered them inside. The place was furnished but sterile. No personality. Just a place to hide. Stay away from windows, Marco instructed. Don't go outside. Dante will be here within the hour. Then he left, taking half the guards with him. Sophia locked the door and checked every room, making sure they were truly alone. Then she sat Lila down on the couch and tried to explain what was happening without terrifying her completely. It didn't work. Lila cried, asked if they were going to die, asked if this was like before, when Travis used to hurt them. No, Sophia said firmly. This is different. Dante won't let anything happen to us. How do you know? Because I trust him. And she did. Completely. Irrationally. In a way that should have scared her, but instead felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in years. Dante arrived 73 minutes later. Sophia heard the vehicles pull up, heard Marco's voice barking orders, and then the door opened and Dante walked in looking like he'd aged a decade in the past 2 hours. His gaze found Sophia immediately. You okay? Fine. Lila's upstairs. Dante nodded. He looked at the guards. Perimeter check. Now. They scattered. The moment they were alone, Dante crossed the room and pulled Sophia into his arms. She went rigid with surprise before melting against him, her face pressed to his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. I'm sorry, Dante said quietly. I'm so sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen. It's not your fault. It is. Castellano's retaliating because I cut ties with his operation last month. He's using his son's death as an excuse. Did you? No. The kid OD'd on his own. But Castellano doesn't care about the truth. He cares about power. And he thinks going after you will force me back into line. Sophia pulled back to look at him. Will it? Dante's expression hardened. No. It'll make me bury him. The cold certainty in his voice should have horrified her. It didn't. Because Sophia was done pretending violence didn't sometimes solve problems. Done pretending the world was fair or kind. Done believing that being good was enough to keep you safe. What do we do now? She asked. We wait. I've got people tracking Castellano's movements. Once I know where he is, I'll handle it. Handle it how? Dante's gaze didn't waver. Do you really want details? Sophia thought about it. About Lila upstairs terrified and crying. About the fact that they were hiding in a safe house because some violent man wanted to use them as leverage. No, she said finally. I just want it over. It will be. I promise. He kissed her forehead, and Sophia closed her eyes, breathing him in, trying to memorize this moment, the calm before whatever storm was coming. Behind them, footsteps on the stairs. Mom? Lila's voice shaky and small. Sophia turned. Lila stood on the bottom step, her face blotchy from crying, and when she saw Dante, her expression crumpled completely. I'm scared, Lila whispered. Dante crouched down, eye level with her. I know, but you're safe here. I won't let anyone hurt you, either of you, I promise. You promise? I promise. Lila threw her arms around his neck. Dante froze for half a second, surprise flickering across his face, before his arms came up to hold her carefully, like she was made of glass. And watching them, Sophia felt something crack open inside her chest. Not fear, not doubt. Something worse. Love. She was in love with Dante Bellucci. The realization hit her like a freight train. She was in love with a man who'd killed people, who still might kill people, who was trying to become something better, but might fail, who was dangerous and broken and entirely wrong for her in every measurable way. And she didn't care, because he was holding her daughter like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, like he'd burned the whole world down before he let anyone hurt her. And Sophia had never wanted anything more than she wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted the impossible future he was trying to build. Even if it killed them both. What? 3 days in the safe house. 3 days of waiting while Dante coordinated with Marco and his remaining loyal men, tracking Castellano's movements, building a case, legal and otherwise, that would end this permanently. Sophia tried to keep things normal for Lila. They did schoolwork, watched movies on the laptop, played cards. But the tension was suffocating. On the third night, after Lila finally fell asleep, Sophia found Dante on the back porch, smoking a cigarette he'd bummed off one of the guards. I didn't know you smoked, Sophia said. I don't. Quit 10 years ago. Dante took another drag, his expression distant. Old habits. Sophia sat beside him on the porch steps. The forest stretched out around them, dark and endless. Talk to me, she said. About what? Whatever's making you look like that. Dante was quiet for a long time. Then, Castellano's hiding, using his family's connections to stay off the grid. But he's getting sloppy, desperate. Marco thinks he'll make a move soon. What kind of move? The violent kind. Sophia's stomach clenched. Against you? Against anyone he thinks I care about. Dante's jaw tightened. He doesn't know about you yet. Doesn't know about Lila, but he will. And when he does, you'll handle it. What if I can't? The question hung in the air. Sophia reached over and took the cigarette from his hand. She stubbed it out against the porch railing. Then we handle it together. Dante looked at her, really looked at her. You mean that? Yes. You'd stay, even knowing what's coming. I already told you, I'm tired of running. This isn't running. This is survival. No. Sophia's voice was firm. Survival is what I did with Travis, enduring, waiting for it to end. This is different. This is choosing to fight. You don't have to. I want to. Sophia grabbed his hand, lacing their fingers together. I want to fight for this. For you. For the life you're trying to build. Because it's worth it. You're worth it. Dante's expression shattered. He pulled her close, kissing her hard, and Sophia kissed him back with everything she had. All the fear and hope and desperate love she'd been holding inside. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said roughly. I know I shouldn't. I know it's too fast and too dangerous and completely insane. But I do. I love you. Sophia's heart was trying to punch through her ribs. I love you too. Sophia. I do. And I'm not taking it back. So you're stuck with me. Dante laughed, raw and surprised and utterly devastating. Okay. Okay? Okay. He kissed her again, softer this time. But after this is over, after Castellano's handled, we're doing this right. No more hiding, no more waiting. I'm going to marry you. Sophia's breath caught. Dante, I mean it. You and Lila, my family, the only thing that matters anymore. Tears burned Sophia's eyes. You haven't even asked. I'm not asking. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Dante's thumb brushed across her cheek. Unless you're planning to say no, I'm not. Good. They sat together on the porch in the dark, holding each other, and for a few stolen moments, Sophia let herself believe it was possible. That they could have this. That love could survive violence. That broken people could build something whole. Then her phone buzzed. Marco's name on the screen. Dante answered. Talk. Sophia couldn't hear Marco's side of the conversation, but she watched Dante's expression shift. Shock, then fury, then something colder. When? Dante's voice was clipped. Pause. How many? Pause. Lock it down. I'm coming back. He hung up. Sophia's stomach dropped. What happened? Castellano's men hit the estate. Dante stood, already moving. They didn't get past the gates, but they left a message. What kind of message? Dante's expression was murderous. They know about you, about Lila, and Castellano wants a meeting. A meeting for what? To negotiate my surrender. Dante's laugh was harsh. He thinks if he threatens you, I'll give him back the territory I took, the money I redirected, everything. Sophia's hands were shaking. Will you? Dante looked at her like she'd stabbed him. No, he said quietly, but I will kill him. Dante, this ends tomorrow. One way or another. He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze intense. But I need you to promise me something. What? If this goes wrong, if I don't come back, you take Lila and run. Marco will give you money, new identities, everything you need to disappear. I'm not leaving you. Promise me, Sophia. She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but the look in his eyes stopped her. I promise, she whispered. Dante kissed her one last time, deep and desperate and final. Then he was gone, and Sophia stood alone on the porch, watching the taillights disappear into the forest, wondering if she'd just said goodbye to the only man she'd ever truly loved, wondering if she'd ever see him again, wondering if this was how her story ended, not with safety, not with peace, but with blood. Sophia didn't sleep. She sat in the darkened living room of the safe house, phone clutched in her hand, watching the minutes crawl past on the clock above the fireplace. 3 a.m. became 4. 4 became 5. The guards rotated shifts outside, their footsteps crunching on gravel, their radios crackling with static and coded phrases Sophia didn't understand. Lila slept upstairs, finally exhausted from crying herself into unconsciousness around midnight. Sophia had held her until the trembling stopped, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep, promises that everything would be okay, that Dante would come back, that they were safe. Lies felt easier than the truth. At 5:47 a.m., headlights cut through the windows. Sophia was on her feet instantly, heart hammering. She moved to the window, staying to the side like Marco had taught her, and watched 3 black SUVs pull into the driveway. The middle vehicle's door opened. Dante stepped out. Relief hit Sophia so hard her knees buckled. She grabbed the door frame to stay upright, watching as Dante spoke briefly with Marco, his expression unreadable even from a distance. He looked exhausted. His shirt was wrinkled, tie gone, and there was something dark on his sleeve that might have been blood. But he was alive. Sophia yanked the door open before she could stop herself. Dante's gaze snapped to her immediately. Something in his expression softened, just for a second, before he was moving, crossing the driveway in long strides. And then his hands were on her face, and he was kissing her like he'd thought he'd never get the chance again. Sophia kissed him back desperately, tasting exhaustion and fury and something metallic that made her stomach turn. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. It's done, he said roughly. Castellano? Dead. His entire operation dismantled. The families have been notified. There won't be retaliation. Sophia pulled back to look at him. You're sure? I'm sure. Dante's jaw tightened. I made it very clear what happens to anyone who threatens you or Lila. Very clear. The cold certainty in his voice should have scared her. It didn't. Come inside, Sophia whispered. You look like you're about to fall over. Dante nodded. He let her lead him into the house, past the guards who averted their eyes respectfully, into the kitchen where Sophia poured him a glass of water and watched him drink it like a man dying of thirst. When's the last time you slept? She asked. What day is it? Dante. I'm fine. You're not. Sophia crossed her arms. Sit down before you pass out. For a moment she thought he'd argue. Then he pulled out a chair and sat heavily, elbows on the table, head in his hands. Sophia moved behind him and placed her hands on his shoulders. She could feel the tension coiled in every muscle, tight as piano wire. Slowly, carefully, she started kneading the knots, working her thumbs into the rigid muscles of his neck. Dante made a sound that was almost a groan. You're trying to kill me, he muttered. I'm trying to help you relax. Same thing. Despite everything, Sophia smiled. She kept working, feeling the tension gradually ease under her hands, and after a few minutes, Dante's breathing deepened, steadied. Tell me what happened, Sophia said quietly. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. Dante was silent for a long moment. Then, Castellano was hiding in a warehouse in Red Hook. We cornered him there with 6 of his men. He tried to negotiate, said if I gave him back the territory and paid reparations for his son's death, he'd leave you alone. What did you say? Nothing. I shot him in the head. Sophia's hands stilled. Dante continued, his voice flat and emotionless. His men tried to retaliate. Marco's team handled it. By the time the police arrived, and they took their time arriving, the scene was clean, self-defense. Castellano had pulled a weapon. Witnesses confirmed it. Case closed. Witnesses you paid. Witnesses who value their lives. Sophia resumed the massage, processing this. Processing the fact that the man sitting in front of her had killed someone less than 3 hours ago and was now calmly describing it like a business transaction. She should have been horrified. She wasn't. Do you regret it? Sophia asked. No. Do you feel guilty? No. Dante turned to look at her, his expression serious. He threatened my family. There's no coming back from that. Not in my world. Not in any world. I'm not your family yet. Yes, Dante said quietly. You are. Something in Sophia's chest cracked wide open. She leaned down and kissed the top of his head, breathing in the scent of him, smoke and cologne and something darker she didn't want to identify. Go shower, she whispered. I'll make coffee. Dante stood, catching her hand as he passed. Thank you. For what? For not running. He disappeared upstairs before Sophia could respond. She stood in the kitchen, listening to the water run, and tried to understand what she'd become. Who she'd become. A woman who didn't flinch when the man she loved admitted to murder. A woman who understood that sometimes violence was the only answer. A woman who'd stopped believing in fairy tales and started believing in survival. Maybe that made her a monster too. Or maybe it just made her human. They returned to the estate that afternoon. The damage from Castellano's attack was minimal. Bullet holes in the front gate, scorch marks on the driveway where someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail that didn't ignite properly. The security team was already repairing everything, working with grim efficiency. Inside, the house felt different, quieter, like it was holding its breath. Leela immediately disappeared into the kitchen to find Antonio, seeking comfort in the familiar routine of baking. Sophia let her go. Let her process this her own way. Marco appeared in the front hall, phone in hand, expression tight. We need to talk. Dante nodded. He looked at Sophia. Give us a minute? Of course. She went upstairs, but she didn't go far, just stood at the top of the landing, listening. 3 families are asking questions, Marco was saying. They want to know why you went scorched earth on Castellano without consulting the council first. I don't answer to the council anymore? That's the problem. You can't just... Dante, you're making enemies, powerful ones. Let them come. You're not hearing me. Marco's voice rose. You think killing Castellano solved everything? You think this is over? You've destabilized the entire power structure. There are men who've been waiting for an excuse to take you down, and you just handed it to them. Then I'll handle them too. With what? You've been selling off assets, cutting ties, trying to go legitimate. You're bleeding resources, bleeding manpower. How long do you think you can hold out against a coordinated attack? Silence. Then Dante, quieter. As long as I have to. This is about her, isn't it? The housekeeper. Watch your mouth. She's made you weak. The temperature in the room dropped. Say that again, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. I dare you. Marco's next words were too quiet for Sophia to hear, but whatever he said made Dante laugh, harsh and bitter. You think I'm weak because I care about something other than money and territory? You think love is weakness? Then you're the one who doesn't understand. She makes me stronger. She makes me want to be someone worth surviving for. And if you can't see that, then you're blind. I see a man throwing away an empire for a woman he barely knows. I know her better than I've ever known anyone, and I'd burn this entire empire to ash before I let anything happen to her or her daughter. Footsteps. Marco walking away. The front door slamming. Sophia stood frozen at the top of the stairs, her heart in her throat. Dante appeared at the bottom, looking up at her with an expression she couldn't read. How much did you hear? He asked. Enough. And? Sophia descended the stairs slowly. And Marco's right. I am making you weak. No, I am. You're losing allies because of me. Losing power. Making enemies. Sophia reached the bottom step, eye level with him now. Maybe I should take Lila and go. Find an apartment. Start over somewhere else. Give you space to... No. Dante. No. He grabbed her hands, his grip almost desperate. You're not leaving. I don't care what Marco thinks. I don't care what the families think. I don't care about any of it. You and Lila, you're the only thing that matters. But if staying puts you in danger, I've been in danger my entire life. That's nothing new. What's new is having something worth protecting, someone worth changing for. Dante's voice cracked. Don't take that away from me, please. Sophia's vision blurred with tears. I'm scared. So am I. What if we can't do this? What if it's too much? Then we'll fail together, but we'll fail trying. Dante pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Sophia pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and made a choice. Yes, she whispered. Then we keep going, one day at a time, until we make it work or die trying. It should have sounded dramatic, melodramatic even. Instead, it just sounded true. The next 2 weeks were deceptively peaceful. Dante continued transitioning his operations, selling the last of his illegal holdings, pouring everything into legitimate businesses. The construction company expanded. The real estate portfolio grew. On paper, Dante Bellucci was becoming a respectable businessman. In reality, the vultures were circling. Sophia felt it in the tension that permeated the estate, in the increase in security, in the way Dante's phone never stopped ringing with calls from men whose names she didn't recognize, but whose voices carried weight. Marco stopped coming around. That was the first sign something was wrong. Where is he? Sophia asked one night over dinner. Dante's expression didn't change. Handling some business in the city. What kind of business? The kind you don't need to worry about. Dante, he set down his fork. Marco and I had a disagreement about the direction of certain operations. He's taking some time to cool off. A disagreement about what? About you. Sophia's stomach dropped. What did he say? It doesn't matter what he said. What matters is that he's wrong. Tell me anyway. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, he thinks you're a liability, that keeping you here makes me vulnerable to attack, that I should send you away for your own protection. And what do you think? I think he can go to hell. Despite everything, Sophia almost smiled. Very diplomatic. I'm done being diplomatic. I'm done pretending I can make everyone happy. Marco will come around or he won't. Either way, you stay. Across the table, Lila was pushing pasta around her plate, pretending not to listen. But Sophia saw the tension in her daughter's shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly. This was affecting her too. That night, after Lila went to bed, Sophia found Dante in his study, nursing a glass of whiskey. We need to talk about Lila, she said. Dante looked up. What about her? She's terrified. She's trying to hide it, but I can tell. The attack, Castellano, all of this. It's too much for a 12-year-old. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Maybe we should consider boarding school, somewhere safe, somewhere far from me, from this. Sophia gestured at the room, the house, the life they were living. From the violence and the danger and the constant threat. Dante set down his glass. You want to send her away. I want her safe. She is safe, here, with us. Is she? Sophia's voice rose. Because it doesn't feel safe, Dante. It feels like we're waiting for the next attack, the next threat. And I can't keep doing this to her. She's already been through so much with Travis, and now, I'm not Travis. The words hung in the air like a slap. Sophia froze. I know that. Do you, because you're talking about sending Lila away like I'm some kind of monster she needs protecting from? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Dante stood, his movements sharp. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're looking for an excuse to leave, to take her and run before things get worse. I'm trying to protect her. So am I. Dante's voice echoed off the walls. You think I don't lie awake every night wondering if I'm putting you both in danger? You think I don't know that every choice I make could get you killed? I know. I live with that knowledge every single day, but I also know that sending Lila away won't keep her safe. It'll just make her think she's not wanted. Sophia's breath caught. That's not... I grew up being sent away. Shuffled between boarding schools and relatives who didn't want me because my father thought I was weak. You know what that teaches a kid? That they're disposable. That love is conditional. That the people who are supposed to protect you will abandon you the second things get hard. Tears burned Sophia's eyes. Dante, Lila stays, you both stay, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. But I can't. His voice cracked. I can't lose you. Either of you. Sophia crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. Dante held her like she was the only thing keeping him upright, his face buried in her hair. I'm sorry, Sophia whispered. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to... I'm just scared. I know, so am I. They stood there in the dark study, holding each other, and Sophia tried to believe that love was enough, that they could survive this, that the violence circling them would eventually dissipate. But deep down, she knew better. Deep down, she knew the worst was still coming. It came 3 days later. Sophia was in the library helping Lila with algebra when Marco appeared in the doorway. He looked terrible, pale, disheveled, like he hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, Marco said. All of us. Something in his tone made Sophia's blood run cold. What happened? Where's Dante? In a meeting with his accountants. Marco, what? Get him, now, and bring Lila. I'm not bringing my daughter into... She needs to hear this too. Sophia's hands were shaking as she called Dante's cell. He answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Marco's here. He says we all need to talk. He looks... Dante, something's very wrong. I'm coming. He was there in less than 2 minutes, striding into the library with murder in his eyes. This better be important. Marco closed the door behind him, locked it. That was when Sophia knew. Whatever was coming was bad, very bad. Marco pulled a folder from his bag and dropped it on the table. I've been doing some digging into Castellano's operation, into the attack on the estate, into why he targeted you specifically. And? Dante's voice was clipped. And I found something you're not going to like. Just say it. Marco opened the folder. Inside were photographs, documents, bank statements. He pushed one across the table. It was a wire transfer, dated 3 weeks before Castellano's attack, $50,000. From an account Sophia didn't recognize, to Castellano's personal holding company. What is this? Dante asked. Marco pushed another document forward. This is the account information for the sender. Sophia's heart stopped, because she recognized the account number. It was hers. The one Dante had opened for her when she first agreed to stay. The one he'd deposited money into for her personal expenses. That's impossible, Sophia said. I wouldn't. I know. Marco's voice was grim. Someone used your account, routed money through it to make it look like you were paying Castellano. Paying him for what? Dante's voice was dangerous. Marco pulled out another photo. This one showed Sophia and Lila at a coffee shop in town, taken from a distance, dated 2 days before the attack. Castellano's men were following you, Marco said. They knew your routines, knew where Lila went to school, knew when you were most vulnerable. He paused. Someone gave them that information. The room tilted. Sophia grabbed the edge of the table. You think I was working with him? No. Marco's expression was careful.
But someone wanted it to look that way. Someone set you up. Who? Dante's voice could have cut glass. Marco hesitated. Then he pulled out one final document.
A phone log. Calls between Sophia's phone and a number registered to one of Castellano's associates. Dozens of calls, all within the past 2 months. I never made these calls, Sophia said, her voice shaking. This is insane. Someone's lying. Someone's trying to... She looked at Dante. His expression was unreadable. Dante, you have to believe me. I love you. I would never betray you. I know. Then why aren't you... Because someone went into a lot of trouble to make this look real. Dante's voice was ice. Someone with access to your accounts, your phone, your movements, someone close. Who? Dante looked at Marco. Pull the security footage, every camera, every angle. I want to know who accessed Sophia's accounts and when. Marco nodded and left quickly. Alone with Sophia and Lila, Dante's mask finally cracked. I believe you, he said quietly. But someone out there is trying to destroy us, trying to make me think you betrayed me, trying to turn me against you. Why? Because it's the only way to break me. The families, whoever's behind this, they know I won't abandon you, won't kill you. So they're trying to force my hand, make me choose between you and my credibility. Sophia's mind was racing. So what do? We find out who's setting you up, and we end them. Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, hand shaking. Hello? The voice on the other end was distorted, mechanical. You should have run when you had the chance. Sophia's blood turned to ice. Who is this? Someone who knows exactly what you're worth. 50,000 was cheap for information on Bellucci's weakness. But the real payday? That comes when you're dead and he finally falls apart. The line went dead. Sophia dropped the phone. Dante picked it up, looked at the screen, and immediately started dialing. Marco, trace the last call to Sophia's phone. Now. He hung up and looked at Sophia. What did they say? They said 50,000 was cheap, that the real payday comes when I'm dead. Sophia's voice broke. Dante, someone's going to kill me. Someone wants me dead to get to you. Lila started crying. Dante crossed the room and pulled them both close. That's not happening. Nobody's touching either of you. I don't care what it takes. But Sophia could hear it in his voice. The fear. The realization that this was bigger than Castellano. Bigger than one enemy. This was a coordinated attack, and they were running out of time. Marco returned 30 minutes later with the security team. The call came from a burner phone, untraceable, but he hesitated. But what? Dante demanded. We found something else. In the estate's internal network, someone's been accessing your files remotely. Personal files, financial records, communications. For how long? At least 6 months. The words hit like a physical blow. 6 months. Someone had been spying on them for 6 months. Who has that level of access? Sophia asked. Marco's expression went dark. Only 3 people. Me, you. He looked at Dante. And Antonio. Silence. Then Dante very quietly. No. We need to consider... No. Dante's voice was steel. Antonio's been with this family for 37 years. He would never... Then who? Marco's frustration was palpable. Because someone with intimate knowledge of this estate has been feeding information to your enemies. Someone you trust. Someone close. Sophia's mind raced through the past months. The quiet moments in the kitchen with Antonio. The way he'd comforted Lila. The stories he'd told about Dante's childhood. The way he'd known exactly when Dante would be away. Exactly when the estate would be vulnerable. No. It couldn't be. But even as Sophia thought it, doubt crept in. We need to talk to him, Dante said. Now. Where is he? Kitchen, one of the guards said. They found Antonio exactly where he always was. At the stove, stirring a pot of sauce, humming under his breath. He looked up when they entered, smiled. Ah, dinner's almost ready. I made... He stopped. Something in Dante's expression made the smile die. What's wrong? Antonio asked carefully. We need to talk, Dante said.
About some irregularities in the security system. Antonio set down his spoon. What kind of irregularities?
The kind where someone's been accessing my private files, sharing information with my enemies, getting innocent people killed. Antonio's face went pale. You think I don't know what to think. That's why we're talking. Dante, I swear to you, I would never. Then explain this. Marco pulled out a printout. IP addresses, access logs, all pointing back to the kitchen's computer terminal.
Antonio stared at the paper. I can't. This doesn't make sense. I use that computer for recipes, shopping lists. I don't know how to. Someone used your login credentials, Marco said, multiple times, to access files you shouldn't have access to. I don't know how. Antonio's voice rose, panicked. My password, I keep it written down in my office. Anyone could have who has access to your office. Everyone, the staff, the guards. It's never locked. I never thought. He stopped.
His eyes went wide. What? Dante stepped closer. What did you just remember? Antonio's hands were shaking. There was, about 2 months ago, I came into my office and things were moved, papers out of place. I thought maybe someone was looking for a recipe, but what? The computer was on. I always shut it down at night. Always, but that morning it was on. Dante and Marco exchanged looks. Did you tell anyone, shit? Marco asked. No, I thought I'd just forgotten. Antonio looked at Dante, desperation in his eyes. You have to believe me. I would never betray you. Never. You're like a son to me. Dante's jaw tightened. I know. Then who? The kitchen door opened. A guard stepped in, young, mid-20s, someone Sophia vaguely recognized from the security rotation. Sir, I have the footage you requested. From when? 2 months ago, the night of the office incident.
Dante took the tablet, pulled up the video. They all watched in silence as the timestamp rolled. 2:47 a.m. The kitchen was dark. Then a figure appeared, moving carefully through the shadows. The figure entered Antonio's office, sat down at the computer, started typing. Dante zoomed in. Sophia's breath caught, because the face on the screen was familiar. Very familiar. It was one of the housekeepers, a woman named Elise, mid-40s, quiet, efficient. Someone who'd worked at the estate for years. Someone Sophia had worked beside for years. Elise, Sophia whispered. Dante was already moving. Where is she? Her shift ended an hour ago, the guard said. Find her, now. I want her in my office in the next 10 minutes, or I want to know why. The guard scattered. Dante turned to Antonio. I'm sorry. I should have known. It's fine. But Antonio's hands were still shaking. Just find out who's doing this. They didn't have to wait long. 5 minutes later, the guards returned, empty-handed. She's gone, Marco said. Apartment's cleared out. No forwarding address, no phone. She's been gone for at least 12 hours. 12 hours before we discovered the breach, Dante said slowly. She knew we were getting close. Someone warned her. Or she was smart enough to know when to run. Sophia's mind was spinning. Elise worked here for years. What would she gain from... Marco pulled out his phone, started typing. His expression went dark. What? Dante demanded. Elise Moreau. Not her real name. Real name is Elise Castellano. The room went silent. Castellano, Sophia repeated. As in, his niece. Marco's voice was grim. She's been here for 3 years, working, watching, reporting back. Dante's expression was murderous. And I never knew. I hired her, trusted her, let her into my home. She played the long game, Marco said. Waited until you were vulnerable, until you had something worth losing. Then she struck. Where is she now? If I had to guess, with whoever's pulling the strings, whoever wants you destroyed. Sophia felt sick. 3 years. This woman had been in their lives for 3 years, pretending to be loyal, pretending to care, all while feeding information to people who wanted them dead. And Sophia had never suspected, never even questioned. We need to find her, Dante said, but now, before she... His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, put it on speaker. The same distorted voice from before. Still looking for answers, Bellucci? Let me save you some time. Elise isn't working alone. She's working for me.
And I have everything I need to destroy you, your finances, your operations, your secrets, every weakness you've ever had. Who are you? A laugh, cold. Someone you should have killed when you had the chance. Then a different voice came on the line, not distorted, clear, familiar. Hello, Dante. Sophia's blood turned to ice, because she recognized that voice. It was Travis Kane. Surprised? Travis said, and Sophia could hear the smile in his words. You thought sending me to Seattle would make me disappear. You thought I'd just take your money and start over and forget what you did. Dante's hand tightened on the phone. You signed the agreement. I signed under duress, doesn't count. But that's okay, because while you were busy playing house with my family, I was making new friends. Friends who hate you just as much as I do. Friends who want to see you bleed. If you touch them? Dante, I've been touching them for months. Watching Sophia smile at you. Watching Lila call you family. Watching you take everything I had and claim it as yours. Travis's voice turned vicious. But that ends now. Because I'm coming for what's mine, and when I'm done, you'll wish you'd killed me when you had the chance. The line went dead. Sophia couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Travis was alive. Travis was working with Dante's enemies. Travis was coming for them. And this time, there was nowhere left to run. The phone clattered to the floor. Sophia couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The sound of Travis's voice echoed in her skull like a gunshot, each word carving deeper into the fragile sense of safety she'd built over the past months. He was alive. He was coming. And he wasn't alone. Dante bent down, picked up the phone with movements so controlled they looked mechanical. His face had gone blank. Not calm, not peaceful, but emptied of everything except cold calculation. When he finally spoke, his voice could have frozen blood. Marco, full lockdown, now. Marco was already moving, barking orders into his radio. Within seconds, alarms began shrieking through the estate. Metal shutters slammed down over windows, doors locked with heavy metallic thuds. Outside, Sophia could hear vehicles moving, guards taking positions, the organized chaos of a fortress preparing for siege. Lila grabbed Sophia's arm, her fingernails digging in hard enough to hurt. Mom, what's happening? Who was that? Sophia opened her mouth, but nothing came out. How did you tell your 12-year-old daughter that the monster from her nightmares had crawled back from the grave? Dante crouched in front of Lila, his hands steady on her shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. Some bad people are trying to hurt us, but I won't let that happen. Do you understand? Lila nodded, tears streaming down her face. Good. Now I need you to go with Marco. He's going to take you somewhere safe inside the house, somewhere nobody can reach you. I want to stay with Mom. You can't. Dante's voice was firm but not unkind. Your mom needs to help me stop these people, and I need to know you're protected so I can focus. Can you be brave for me? Lila looked at Sophia, desperate and terrified. Sophia forced herself to nod. Go with Marco, baby. I'll come find you as soon as this is over. I promise. Marco appeared, his expression grim. Safe room is ready. Dante stood, releasing Lila's shoulders. Take her. Now. Marco held out his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Lila took it. She looked back at Sophia once, her face crumpling, before Marco led her out of the kitchen and toward the secure wing of the house. The moment the door closed, Sophia's legs gave out. She caught herself against the counter, gasping, her vision swimming. The panic she'd been holding back crashed over her in waves. Travis was alive. Travis had been planning this for months. Travis had allied himself with people who wanted Dante dead, and he was using her, using Lila, as weapons. Strong hands gripped her shoulders. Breathe, Dante said. Look at me. Breathe. Sophia tried, failed, tried again. Her lungs felt like they were filled with broken glass. He was supposed to be gone, she choked out. You said he was in Seattle. He lied. Or he came back. It doesn't matter. Dante's grip tightened. What matters is stopping him before he gets near you. How? He knows everything. He's been watching us, planning this. How do we... We fight. Dante's voice cut through her panic like a blade. We fight and we win because the alternative is unacceptable. Sophia looked up at him. His face was still blank, still controlled, but his eyes were burning with something primal, something that looked like rage and fear twisted together until they were indistinguishable. I can't lose you, he said quietly. Either of you. I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let him take you back. Dante? The lights went out. Complete darkness. So sudden and absolute that Sophia gasped. Then emergency generators kicked in, bathing everything in dim red light. They cut the main power, someone shouted from the hallway. Multiple breach points at the perimeter fence. Dante's hand found Sophia's in the darkness. Stay close to me. Don't let go. They moved through the house, Dante pulling her along corridors she barely recognized in the emergency lighting. Armed guards rushed past them, heading toward the exits. Radios crackled with overlapping voices reporting positions, coordinates, threats. East Gate compromised. 3 hostiles moving through the gardens. Shots fired, North Wing. The sound of gunfire erupted somewhere outside. Close, too close. Dante shoved Sophia into a side room, his study, and locked the door behind them. He crossed to the desk, pulled open a drawer, and withdrew a handgun. He checked the magazine, chambered around, then held it out to her. Sophia stared at it. I've never... Safety's here. Point. Squeeze. Don't pull. If anyone comes through that door who isn't me or Marco, you shoot them. Understand? Sophia's hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the weapon. Dante, I can't. Yes, you can. He wrapped her fingers around the grip, positioning them correctly. You're stronger than you think. You survived Travis for months. You can survive this. More gunfire. Closer now. The windows rattled. Dante pulled out a second gun, larger, and moved toward the door. Stay here. Don't open this for anyone. Where are you going? To end this. You can't just... Dante, you don't even know how many of them there are. I know Travis is with them. That's enough. He was halfway to the door when Sophia grabbed his arm. Wait. Dante turned. Sophia kissed him, hard and desperate and tasting like fear. When she pulled back, tears were streaming down her face. Come back to me, she whispered. Dante's mask cracked for just a second, just long enough for her to see the terror underneath. I will. Then he was gone. Sophia stood alone in the darkened study, gun heavy in her hands, listening to the sounds of battle escalate outside. Footsteps pounding, shouted orders, the sharp crack of gunfire punctuated by screams she tried not to identify. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her finger hovered over the decline button. Then, against every instinct, she answered. Hello, Sophia. Travis's voice, still distorted but unmistakable. You bastard, Sophia hissed. You were supposed to be gone. You promised. I promised nothing. Dante threatened me, forced me to sign papers, stole my family. Travis's laugh was ugly. But that's over now. Tonight I take back what's mine. I was never yours. You were mine first. You and Lila both. And you'll be mine again. After Dante's dead and his empire is ashes, you'll have nowhere else to go. No one else to protect you. Just me. Sophia's grip on the gun tightened. I'd rather die. That can be arranged too. But Lila, sweet little Lila, she doesn't have to suffer. She can still have a father. Someone who actually cares about her instead of using her as a pawn in his little power games. You're insane. You beat her. You threw her against a wall. I was stressed. I made mistakes. But I can change. Just like your precious Dante claims he can change. Except I actually mean it. You're lying. Am I? Or are you just so desperate to believe in fairy tales that you can't see the truth? Dante Bellucci is a killer, Sophia. A monster. And monsters don't get happy endings. The line went dead. Sophia stood trembling in the red-lit darkness, Travis's words circling her brain like vultures. He was wrong. He had to be wrong. Dante wasn't. Dante was trying to... The study door exploded inward. Sophia screamed, raising the gun, finger on the trigger. Don't shoot! Marco stumbled through the doorway, blood streaming down his face from a gash above his eyebrow. It's me! Sophia lowered the weapon, her heart trying to punch through her ribs. What happened? They breached the main house. At least 8 hostiles inside, maybe more. Marco leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Where's Dante? He went to find Travis. Alone? Marco's expression went dark. That idiot. That absolute... He grabbed Sophia's arm. Come on, we need to get you to the safe room with Lila. I'm not leaving him.
You're not helping him by getting killed. Before Sophia could argue, footsteps thundered in the hallway outside. Heavy boots, multiple people. Marco shoved Sophia behind the desk and raised his own weapon. Stay down! 3 men burst into the room, armed, masked. They saw Marco and opened fire. The sound was deafening. Marco returned fire, taking cover behind a leather chair that exploded with bullet holes. Sophia pressed herself flat against the floor, hands over her ears, the gun still clutched in her grip. One of the intruders went down, then another. But the third got a shot off that caught Marco in the shoulder. He spun, hit the wall, and crumpled. The remaining gunman turned toward Sophia. Time slowed. Sophia saw him raise his weapon, saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the barrel swing toward her face. She didn't think, just raised her own gun and fired. The recoil nearly broke her wrist, the sound shattered her eardrums. But the bullet found its target, the man's chest, and he dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Sophia stared at the body, at the spreading pool of blood, at her own hands still holding the gun, still shaking. She'd killed someone, actually killed someone. The realization hit like ice water. She opened her mouth to scream, "Sophia!" Marco's voice, weak but urgent. "Help me up." She scrambled over to him. The shoulder wound was bad, blood soaking through his shirt, but he was conscious, functional. "Can you walk?" Sophia asked. "Have to." Marco used her shoulder to lever himself upright, his face gray with pain. "Safe room, now, before more of them." An explosion rocked the house. The floor buckled, ceiling tiles rained down. Sophia and Marco were thrown sideways, slamming into the wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. When the ringing in her ears subsided, Sophia heard new sounds. Alarms, sprinklers engaging, the crackle of fire. "They're trying to burn us out," Marco gasped. "We need to move, now." He pulled her toward the door and they stumbled into the hallway together. Smoke was already filling the corridor, thick and black and choking. Somewhere in the distance, someone was screaming. They made it halfway to the safe room before more gunmen appeared. This time there was no cover, no protection, just an open hallway and death coming from both directions. Marco pushed Sophia behind him and raised his weapon with his good arm. "Run! I'm not leaving you! Run!" Sophia ran. She heard Marco's gun firing behind her, heard return fire, heard him grunt in pain. But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. She rounded a corner, found the safe room entrance, punched in the access code with trembling fingers. The door opened. Lila was inside, huddled in the corner with Antonio, both of them terrified. When she saw Sophia, she started crying. Sophia threw herself inside and slammed the door shut. The heavy locks engaged automatically, sealing them in. "Where's Mr. Bellucci?" Antonio asked, his voice shaking. "Fighting. Where's Marco?" The question died in Sophia's throat because she already knew the answer. Marco hadn't followed her, hadn't made it. He'd held them off so she could escape. Sophia pressed her back against the reinforced door, sliding down to the floor, and finally let herself break. Great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Lila crawled over and wrapped her arms around her mother, both of them clinging to each other while Antonio watched with horror in his eyes. The safe room had monitors showing security footage from around the estate. Sophia forced herself to look at them through her tears. The house was burning, multiple fires spreading through the east wing, bodies on the ground, guards, intruders, impossible to tell which was which in the smoke and chaos. Then one screen caught her attention. The main foyer, 2 men facing each other across the marble floor. Dante and Travis. Sophia's breath caught. Travis looked different, harder. He'd lost weight, gained muscle. His face was scarred, new marks cutting through his features. He held a gun loosely in one hand, pointing it at Dante with casual confidence. Dante was unarmed, blood on his shirt, limping slightly. But his expression was pure murder. The cameras didn't have audio, but Sophia could see them talking, Travis gesturing with the gun, Dante shaking his head, both of them circling each other like wolves. "Mom, what's happening?" Lila's voice was small, terrified. Sophia couldn't answer, could only watch as the confrontation escalated. Travis said something that made Dante lunge forward. Travis fired. Dante twisted, the bullet grazing his side instead of hitting center mass. He didn't stop moving, just crashed into Travis, both of them going down hard. They fought like animals, fists and elbows and knees. Travis still had the gun, but Dante was faster, stronger, more experienced.
He got one hand on Travis's wrist, slamming it against the marble floor until the weapon skittered away. But Travis pulled a knife. Sophia screamed even though they couldn't hear her. The blade flashed. Dante jerked back, but not fast enough. The knife opened a line across his chest, blood blooming instantly. Dante stumbled, and Travis pressed his advantage, driving the knife toward Dante's throat. Dante caught his wrist, held it. The two men strained against each other, every muscle trembling with effort. Then Dante twisted. The sound of Travis's wrist breaking wasn't audible over the cameras, but Sophia saw Travis's mouth open in a scream. The knife fell. Dante scooped it up and reversed it in one fluid motion. Travis tried to scramble away. Dante followed. What happened next was brutal, efficient, final. Dante drove the knife into Travis's chest once, twice, 3 times, each strike precise and deliberate. Travis collapsed, blood pooling beneath him, his body twitching and then going still. Dante stood over him, breathing hard, the knife still in his hand. For a moment, he just stared down at the body. Then he dropped the weapon and turned toward the nearest camera, looked directly at it, directly at Sophia. His mouth moved. 3 words, clear enough to read even without sound. I love you. Then the building shook again. Another explosion, bigger this time. The monitors flickered and went dark. Sophia was on her feet, pounding on the safe room door. Let me out. I need to get to him. You can't. Antonio grabbed her arms. The locks are on a timer. 30 minutes minimum after engagement. We're trapped until... I don't care. Let me out. But the door wouldn't budge, wouldn't even respond to the access code. They were sealed in while the house burned around them, while Dante was out there, injured, bleeding, alone. Sophia sank to her knees, fists still pounding uselessly against reinforced steel, and screamed until her voice gave out. Oik! 27 minutes. That's how long they waited in the safe room while the world ended outside. Sophia watched the smoke seep in through the ventilation system, felt the temperature rising, heard the distant sounds of more gunfire, more explosions, more death. Lila clung to her, face buried in Sophia's shoulder. Antonio tried the emergency radio but got only static. The backup generators were failing. The sprinkler system had given up. The entire estate was being consumed, and they were trapped inside it. We're going to die here, Antonio said quietly. Not panicked, just resigned. No. Sophia's voice was hoarse from screaming. We're not. Dante will find us. He promised. Sophia, he promised. The timer hit 0. The locks disengaged with a heavy clunk. Sophia grabbed Lila and yanked the door open. Smoke billowed in immediately, thick and choking. The hallway was barely visible through the haze. The emergency lights had failed completely. Only the glow of fire provided illumination. Stay low, Sophia gasped. Cover your mouth. They crawled through the corridor, Antonio leading because he knew the house better than anyone. Sophia kept one hand on Lila, making sure her daughter stayed close. The heat was unbearable. The smoke was worse. Every breath burned. They made it to the main staircase before the ceiling collapsed. Burning debris crashed down, blocking their path. Antonio cursed in Italian and redirected them toward the servant stairs, narrower, steeper, but still intact. They descended into chaos. The ground floor was a war zone. Bodies everywhere, some in guard uniforms, some in tactical gear. All of them dead or dying. Sophia tried to shield Lila's eyes, but there was nowhere to look that wasn't horror. They found Dante in the kitchen. He was slumped against the counter, one hand pressed to his side where blood was seeping through his fingers. His face was gray with pain and blood loss, but he was alive. Sophia. His voice was barely a whisper. She ran to him, dropping to her knees, hands fluttering over his injuries, not knowing where to start. Oh God, we need to get you to a hospital. No time. Dante's breathing was labored. The fire's spreading too fast. We need to get out, now. Can you walk? Have to. Antonio appeared on Dante's other side, and together they hauled him upright. Dante's legs nearly gave out, but he locked his knees and forced himself to stand. Where's Marco? Dante asked. Sophia's expression was answer enough. Dante closed his eyes. Damn it. East exit, Antonio said. It's the only route not completely engulfed. They moved as fast as Dante's injuries allowed, which wasn't fast enough. Behind them, the fire roared closer, consuming everything. The heat was like standing next to a furnace.
Sophia's lungs felt like they were melting. They were almost to the exit when a figure stepped out of the smoke. Elise, the traitorous housekeeper, still in her uniform, gun in hand. She pointed it at Dante. "You killed my uncle," she said flatly. "Now I kill you." "Wait," Sophia stepped forward. "Please, we can—" "Move aside." "No." Elise's eyes narrowed. "I said move." "No." Sophia spread her arms, putting herself between the gun and Dante. "If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me first." "Sophia, don't—" Dante tried to push her aside, but he was too weak. Elise's finger tightened on the trigger. Stupid. The shot never came. Instead, Elise's eyes went wide. She looked down at her chest where a red stain was spreading. Then she collapsed. Behind her stood one of the guards, young, bleeding from a dozen wounds, but still standing. "Go," he rasped. "I'll hold the exit." They didn't argue. They burst through the door into cold night air that felt like salvation. The estate grounds were chaos, fire trucks arriving, police cordoning off the area, survivors being triaged by paramedics. Sophia lowered Dante to the grass, her hand shaking. "Stay with me. Please stay with me. Not planning on leaving." Dante's smile was weak but real. Too stubborn. Paramedics rushed over with a stretcher. They loaded Dante onto it, started working immediately, pressure on wounds, oxygen mask, IV line. "Ma'am, you need to step back. I'm not leaving him." "Ma'am, she stays." Dante's hand found Sophia's, gripping tight. "She stays or I don't go." The paramedic looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. "Fine, but you ride in the ambulance with us." Sophia looked back at Lila. Antonio had her wrapped in his arms, both of them covered in soot and tears, but alive. "Go," Antonio said. "I've got her." The ambulance ride was a blur. Sirens, flashing lights, paramedics shouting medical jargon, Dante's hand in hers, his grip weakening, his eyes fluttering closed. "Don't you dare," Sophia whispered. "Don't you dare leave me now, not after everything." Dante's eyes open, found hers. "Not leaving, just tired. Then sleep. But you wake up. You hear me? You wake up, and you marry me like you promised." Pushy. Damn right. His smile was the last thing she saw before they rushed him into surgery. Then Sophia was alone in a hospital waiting room, covered in blood and soot and ash, and all she could do was wait. Wait and pray to anything that might be listening. Wait and hope that love was enough. That they'd survived the fire, only to build something better from the ashes. The surgery took 6 hours. Sophia sat in the waiting room watching dawn break through industrial windows, turning the sky from black to gray to pale gold. Nurses moved past in quiet efficiency. Doctors were paged over intercoms. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. The world kept turning even when yours had stopped. Antonio arrived with Lila around 7 a.m., both of them scrubbed clean but wearing borrowed clothes from the Red Cross. Lila's eyes were swollen from crying. She crawled into Sophia's lap without a word. Too big for it, really, but Sophia held her anyway, rocking slowly while Antonio sat beside them in silence. "Any news?" he asked finally. Sophia shook her head. They waited. At 8:43 a.m., a surgeon emerged through the double doors, still in scrubs, his surgical mask hanging loose around his neck. He looked tired, but not grim, and that was the first good sign Sophia had seen in 12 hours. "Family of Dante Bellucci?" Sophia stood so fast Lila nearly tumbled off her lap. "Yes, is he... He's stable. The knife wounds were serious, but clean. We repaired the damage to his lung, stopped the internal bleeding. He lost a lot of blood, but we got him transfused. Barring complications, he should make a full recovery." The relief hit Sophia so hard her knees buckled. Antonio caught her, held her upright while she gasped for air. "Can I see him?" she managed. "He's in recovery, still sedated, but once he's moved to ICU, you can sit with him." The surgeon paused. "Fair warning, he's going to be in a lot of pain when he wakes up. The next 72 hours are critical, but he's strong, stubborn, the nurses tell me. That'll help." Sophia laughed despite herself, the sound half-sob. "Yeah, he's stubborn." The surgeon smiled faintly. "I'll have someone come get you when he's settled." He disappeared back through the doors. Sophia sank into the nearest chair and finally
finally let herself believe it. Dante was alive. They'd survived. It was over. They moved Dante to ICU 2 hours later. The room was small, sterile, dominated by machines that beeped and hummed and monitored every function of his body. Dante lay motionless in the bed, his chest rising and falling with mechanical precision courtesy of the oxygen support. Tubes ran everywhere, IV lines, drainage tubes, monitors taped to his skin. He looked fragile in a way Sophia had never seen before. Vulnerable. Human. She pulled a chair close to the bed and took his hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. His skin was cool to the touch. She rubbed her thumb across his knuckles, feeling the familiar calluses, the old scars, and tried not to think about how close she'd come to losing this. Lila stood in the doorway, afraid to come closer. "It's okay," Sophia said gently. "He's just sleeping." "He looks dead." "He's not. Look, see his chest moving? See the monitors? He's breathing. He's fighting." Lila crept closer, her eyes huge. She stared at Dante like she was memorizing him. "Is he going to wake up?" "Yes." "When?" "I don't know, baby. Soon." Lila reached out hesitantly and touched Dante's other hand, just her fingertips against his palm. Then she pulled back quickly, like she'd been burned. "I want him to wake up," she whispered. "So do I." Antonio appeared with coffee and stale hospital sandwiches that tasted like cardboard. Sophia forced herself to eat anyway because she couldn't remember the last time she'd had food. Her body felt hollow, disconnected. The hours crawled past. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting medications, speaking in low voices that Sophia couldn't quite hear. Police officers arrived asking questions about the attack, the fire, the bodies. Sophia answered mechanically, giving them facts without details, names without context. Yes, they'd been attacked. No, she didn't know why. Yes, her ex-boyfriend had been involved. No, she didn't know who else. The detectives looked skeptical, but didn't push. They'd found enough evidence at the estate to keep them busy for months. Weapons, bodies, financial records that probably implicated half the criminal underworld in New York. "We'll need to speak with Mr. Bellucci when he's recovered," one detective said. "He's wanted for questioning in several ongoing investigations." "He's not going anywhere," Sophia said flatly. "Come back when he can actually talk." They left. The sun set. Night fell. The hospital quieted. And still Dante slept. Sophia dozed in the chair, her head resting on the edge of his bed, hand still holding his. She dreamed of fire and blood, and Travis's face hovering over her. Woke gasping, heart pounding, before remembering where she was. Safe. They were safe. Around 3 a.m., Dante's fingers twitched against hers. Sophia's eyes flew open. "Dante?" His eyelids fluttered. His breathing changed, becoming less mechanical, more natural. The machines beeped faster. A nurse rushed in. "He's waking up. Step back, please." Sophia didn't move. "I'm staying." The nurse looked like she wanted to argue, but didn't. She checked the monitors, adjusted something on the IV, then nodded. "Talk to him. Let him know where he is." Sophia leaned close. "Dante, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You're safe. Everything's okay." His eyes opened. For a moment, they were unfocused, confused, darting around the room like he was searching for threats. Then they found Sophia's face and locked on. Recognition. Relief. Love. He tried to speak, but the oxygen mask muffled everything. The nurse removed it carefully. "Slowly, Mr. Bellucci. Your throat's going to be sore from the breathing tube." Dante swallowed hard, winced, and tried again. His voice came out as a rasp. "Sophia, I'm here." "Lila?" "Safe. She's with Antonio, sleeping in the waiting room." Dante's eyes closed briefly, like a prayer of gratitude. When they opened again, they were sharper, more focused. "Travis?" "Dead. You killed him." "Good." No hesitation, no remorse, just cold satisfaction. "The estate?" "Burned. Most of it's gone." "Marco?" Sophia's expression was answer enough. Dante's jaw tightened. Pain flickered across his face, not physical this time. "How many others?" "I don't know. A lot. The police are still—" "Did we win?" The question stopped her. Did they win? They'd survived, But at what cost? Marco was dead. The estate was destroyed. Dante's empire was in shambles. They were alive but broken, scarred in ways that would never fully heal. Was that winning? Yes, Sophia said finally. We won. Dante studied her face for a long moment. Then, quietly, you're lying. No, you're a terrible liar, Sophia. Always have been. His hand squeezed hers weakly. But I appreciate the effort. Despite everything, Sophia smiled. You're an idiot for going after Travis alone. Probably. You could have died. But I didn't. You almost did. Almost doesn't count. Dante's thumb moved against her palm. Come here. Sophia leaned down, careful of the tubes and wires, until her face was inches from his. I meant what I said, Dante whispered. Before. About marrying you. Sophia's eyes burned. You just survived major surgery. Maybe we should talk about this when you're not on morphine. I'm serious. So am I. Ask me again when you can stand without falling over. Is that a yes? That's a we'll see. Dante almost smiled. Then his eyes drifted closed again, exhaustion pulling him under. Sophia stayed where she was, forehead resting against his shoulder, listening to him breathe. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside the window, the city began waking up to another day. And for the first time in what felt like years, Sophia let herself believe in tomorrow. What? Dante remained in this hospital for 2 weeks. The first few days were critical, fighting off infection, managing pain, regaining strength. But he was stubborn, just like the surgeon said, and he healed faster than anyone expected. By day 5, he was sitting up and arguing with his doctors about discharge dates. By day 7, he was walking the halls with Sophia's support, gritting his teeth against the pain but refusing to stop. By day 10, the police had interviewed him 3 times, each session ending with more questions than answers. Dante admitted nothing, confirmed nothing, played the victim of a home invasion by unknown assailants. His lawyers, the ones who hadn't abandoned him after the estate fire, backed him up with enough legalese to make the detective's head spin. Without concrete evidence tying Dante directly to criminal activity, the police had nothing to charge him with. The case would remain open, but Dante would remain free. On day 12, Sophia found him standing at the window of his hospital room, staring out at the city skyline. He'd lost weight, his hospital gown hanging loose on his frame. The bandages wrapped around his chest were visible above the neckline. You should be in bed, Sophia said. I've been in bed for 12 days. I'm losing my mind. You're recovering from being stabbed multiple times. Details. But Dante turned away from the window. He moved carefully, still favoring his left side where the worst damage had been. Any word from the estate? Insurance adjusters were there yesterday. They're calling it a total loss. Dante nodded slowly. And my businesses? Antonio's been coordinating with your remaining staff. The legitimate operations are intact. The construction company, the real estate holdings, the import businesses, they're all still functioning. And the rest? There is no rest. It's gone. The family's carved up your territory before the ashes even cooled. You've been officially declared out of the game. Sophia watched his face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. Dante just looked tired. Good. Good? I wanted out anyway. They just accelerated the timeline. He sat down on the edge of the bed, moving stiffly. What about you and Lila? Where are you staying? Hotel near here. Antonio got us a suite. It's fine. It's temporary. Everything's temporary right now. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his tone made Sophia's stomach clench. What? The estate is gone. Most of my liquid assets were tied up in operations that no longer exist. I still have the legitimate businesses, but they're leveraged, mortgaged. It's going to take years to rebuild any kind of real wealth. He looked at her directly. I'm not rich anymore, Sophia. Not the way I was. I can't offer you the life I promised, the security, the... Stop. Dante stopped. Sophia crossed the room and sat beside him on the bed. Do you think I care about money? You should. You have Lila to think about. She deserves a mother who's not terrified every night, who doesn't jump at shadows, who can look at the man she loves without wondering if he's going to end up dead in an alley somewhere. Sophia took his hand.
You gave us that. Not money, not mansions. Safety, real safety. For the first time in years, I can breathe without waiting for the next disaster. The disaster literally just happened.
And we survived it, together. Sophia's grip tightened. I don't need you to be rich, Dante. I just need you to be alive, to keep trying to be the man you want to become instead of the man you were raised to be. That's enough. Dante stared at her. You mean that? Yes. Even knowing what I've done, what I'm capable of, especially knowing that, Sophia's voice was steady, because you chose us over all of it. You burned your entire empire down to keep Lila and me safe. That's not something a monster does. It's exactly what a monster does. No, it's what a man does when he has something worth protecting. Sophia leaned closer. You're not your father, Dante. You're not Travis. You're not any of the men who hurt you or taught you that violence was the only answer. You're someone new, someone better. And I love that person. I love you. Dante's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. Sophia kissed him gently, careful of his injuries. So ask me again. Ask you what? What you asked in the study before everything went to hell. Ask me properly this time. Dante's expression shifted. Understanding dawned, then uncertainty. I don't have a ring. I don't care. This is a hospital room. I don't care. Dante laughed, quiet and rough and utterly genuine. Then he took both of Sophia's hands in his, holding them carefully. Sophia Mercer, you're the strongest, most stubborn, most infuriating woman I've ever met. You've seen me at my worst and somehow decided I was worth saving anyway. You and Lila, you're the only family I've ever wanted, the only future I care about. His voice cracked. Will you marry me? Sophia was crying openly now, tears streaming down her face. Yes. Yes? Yes, you idiot. Yes! Dante pulled her close, kissing her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had tried to tear itself apart. Sophia kissed him back, tasting salt and relief and the promise of something better. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. We're really doing this, he said. We really are. I'm going to be a terrible husband. Probably. I'm going to be a difficult wife. I believe it. Sophia laughed despite her tears. When you get out of here, we're starting over, finding a new place to live. Something small, normal. No armies of guards, no criminal enterprises, just us and Lila and whatever life we can build. That sounds... Dante paused, searching for the word. Boring. Good. I could use some boring. Me too. They sat together in the quiet hospital room, holding each other, and for the first time in both their lives, the future didn't look like a trap waiting to spring. It looked like possibility. Cool. Dante was discharged on day 14. They left the hospital together, Dante moving slowly but under his own power, Sophia at his side, Lila holding his hand with a grip that suggested she might never let go. Antonio waited with a car. Not a black Mercedes this time. Just a normal sedan. Unremarkable. Forgettable. Perfect. They drove north, away from the city, away from the ashes of the estate, toward a small town in upstate New York where Antonio had found them a house to rent. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, neighbors who smiled and waved and didn't ask questions. It was perfect. The first few weeks were an adjustment. Dante struggled with the quiet, with the lack of constant crisis. He'd spent his entire adult life managing chaos, and suddenly there was nothing to manage except healing and figuring out how to live like a normal person. It didn't come naturally. Sophia found him at 2 a.m. more than once, standing at the kitchen window, staring out at nothing, his hand unconsciously resting on the spot where the knife had gone deepest. Can't sleep? She'd ask. Old habits. She'd make him tea, chamomile, which he claimed to hate but drank anyway, and they'd sit together at the kitchen table talking about nothing and everything until the sun came up. Slowly, the tension began to ease. Dante started sleeping through the night, started smiling more, started teaching Lila to play chess with actual patience instead of the aggressive intensity he'd shown before. Sophia enrolled in the teaching certification program again, picking up where she'd left off. The coursework was demanding but manageable. She studied in the evenings while Dante helped Lila with her homework. The two of them bent over textbooks at the dining table, arguing good-naturedly about math problems. It was domestic, normal, everything Sophia had never thought she could have. Antonio visited weekly, bringing food and gossip from the city. The Bellucci construction company was thriving under new management. The real estate portfolio had been restructured. Dante's legitimate businesses were growing steadily, providing enough income to be comfortable, if not extravagant. "You're becoming respectable," Antonio teased one afternoon, watching Dante grill burgers in the backyard. "It's disturbing." "You'll get used to it." "I don't think I will." But Antonio was smiling. "It suits you, though, this life." Dante glanced toward the house where Sophia and Lila were setting the table through the window. "Yeah, it does." 6 months after the fire, on a cool autumn afternoon, Dante and Sophia got married. The ceremony was small, just Antonio, Lila, the local justice of the peace, and a handful of neighbors who'd become unexpected friends. No elaborate venue, no designer dress. Sophia wore a simple white sundress she'd bought at a department store. Dante wore slacks and a button-down shirt. It was perfect. They exchanged vows in the backyard under an oak tree that was just starting to turn gold. Lila stood beside them as a witness, crying openly, clutching a bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked that morning. Dante's vows were simple but devastating in their sincerity. "I spent my whole life believing I was broken, that violence was all I was good for, that I'd die young and unmourned, and that would be justice for everything I'd done." His voice cracked. "You showed me that was wrong. You showed me that people can change, that broken things can be repaired, that love isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing there is." He looked at Lila, then back at Sophia. "You and Lila are my family, my home, the only thing that's ever mattered, and I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift." There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. Sophia's own vows were shorter, but no less powerful. "I survived a lot of darkness before I found you. I learned to be small, to be invisible, to accept scraps of affection and call it love. You taught me that I deserved more, that strength isn't about endurance, it's about knowing when to fight and when to walk away, when to hold on and when to let go." She took his hands. "I'm holding on to you, to this, to the life we're building, and I'm never letting go." The justice of the peace pronounced them married. Dante kissed her like he was sealing a promise he intended to keep forever, and Lila threw her arms around both of them, laughing and crying at the same time, officially becoming Lila Bellucci in every way that mattered. That night, after the small celebration ended and Lila had gone to bed, Dante and Sophia sat on the porch watching fireflies dance across the darkened yard. "Do you regret it?" Sophia asked quietly. "Giving up everything you had?" Dante didn't hesitate. "No, not even a little? I gave up power, money, fear. I didn't give up anything that mattered." He pulled her closer. "This, you, Lila, this life, this is everything." Sophia rested her head on his shoulder. "It's not going to be easy. Building something from nothing, staying clean, being normal. I know. There are going to be days when you miss it, when you want the power back." "Probably. What are you going to do when those days come?" Dante was quiet for a moment, then, "Remember what I almost lost. Remember standing in that burning mansion thinking I'd never see you again. Remember watching Travis die and realizing that if I'd lost you, I'd have become something worse than him, something irredeemable." His arm tightened around her. "That's what I'll remember. And that'll be enough." Sophia turned to look at him in the dim light. "You really believe that?" "I have to, because the alternative is going back to who I was. And that man doesn't get to have you, doesn't deserve you." Dante kissed the top of her head. "So yeah, I believe it." They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them, and Sophia realized something profound. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the past, not of Travis's ghost, not of the violence that had shaped so much of her life. She was free. They both were. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Sophia looked at the future and saw only light. Shots. 1 year after the wedding, Sophia graduated from her teaching certification program. She took a position at the local elementary school teaching 4th grade. The pay was modest, but the work was fulfilling in ways she'd never experienced before. Watching children learn, grow, discover their own strengths, it fed something in her soul that had been starving for years. Dante continued running his legitimate businesses from home, slowly building back the wealth he'd lost, but without the blood money that had built his first empire. It was harder, slower, but cleaner, honest. Lila thrived. She made friends at school, joined the soccer team, started talking about college in that distant, dreamy way 13-year-olds did. The nightmares about Travis faded. The bruises on her wrists became old scars. She smiled more, laughed more, became the child she was always supposed to be. On a warm spring evening 2 years after the fire, the three of them sat together in the backyard for dinner. Nothing fancy, just grilled chicken, salad, bread Antonio had taught them to make. Lila was telling a story about something funny that happened at school, animated, dramatic, making them both laugh. Dante listened with complete attention, his expression soft in a way that used to be impossible. Sophia watched them and felt her chest swell with something too big to name. This was what she'd fought for. This was what they'd survived for. Not wealth, not power, not safety from external threats. Just this. A family sitting together in fading sunlight, sharing a meal, connected by something stronger than blood or obligation, connected by choice, by love, by the simple, profound decision to keep trying, keep fighting, keep building something better from the wreckage of what came before. Later that night, after Lila had gone to bed, Sophia found Dante in his office reviewing construction contracts. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work. "You look tired," she said. "Long day." But he smiled. "Good day, though." "Yeah?" "The new development downtown got approved. We break ground next month. It's going to create about 200 jobs." "That's amazing." "It is." Dante set down his pen and looked at her, really looked at her. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "I didn't have to threaten anyone. Didn't have to bribe anyone. Didn't have to hurt anyone. I just did the work, followed the rules, and it worked." He laughed quietly. "Who knew?" Sophia crossed the room and sat on the edge of his desk. "I'm proud of you." "For what? Being a functional adult? That's a pretty low bar." "For choosing to be one. That's harder than you think." Dante stood and pulled her close, careful and gentle in the way he'd learned to be. "I had good motivation." "Oh?" "Yeah." He kissed her softly. "You, Lila, this life. Turns out I'll do just about anything to keep it. Even fill out permit applications?" "Even that." Sophia laughed against his mouth. "You really have changed." "We both have." And it was true. Sophia barely recognized the woman she'd been 2 years ago, the one who'd stumbled bleeding into a hospital, terrified and alone, convinced she'd never escape the cycle of violence that had consumed her life. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd stared down death and chosen to live anyway. Someone who'd learned that survival wasn't about enduring, it was about fighting for something worth keeping. Someone who'd learned that love wasn't supposed to hurt. That night, lying in bed beside Dante, listening to him breathe in the darkness, Sophia thought about everything they'd lost and everything they'd gained. Marco's sacrifice, the estate reduced to ash, the empire dismantled, the blood spilled, and on the other side of all that destruction, this, a small house in a quiet town, a job she loved, a daughter who was healing, a husband who woke up every day choosing to be better than he was raised to be. It wasn't the fairy tale Sophia had dreamed about as a girl. It was better, because it was real, earned, built from the rubble of two broken people who'd somehow found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something whole. Dante's arm tightened around her in his sleep, pulling her closer. Sophia closed her eyes and let herself sink into the warmth of him, into the safety of this moment, into the future stretching out before them like an unwritten story waiting to be told. And for the first time in her entire life, Sophia Bellucci wasn't afraid of what came next, because whatever it was, they'd face it together. The nightmare was over, not because a prince had rescued them, not because evil had been vanquished forever, but because two people who'd survived the worst the world had to offer had chosen, every single day, to keep surviving, to keep loving, to keep fighting for something better. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered, the only one worth having, the only one that would last. Man, personal reflection. Violence doesn't solve everything, but sometimes when you're backed into a corner by people who only understand power, you have to speak their language to survive. Dante and Sophia's story isn't about glorifying that violence. It's about what comes after, about what you do when the dust settles and you're still standing and you have to figure out how to live with what you've done. The truth is, people don't change easily. Patterns carved by trauma run deep, but they can change if they have a reason to, if they have someone worth changing for. Not to save them, nobody can save you but yourself, but to witness the work, to see you trying and decide you're worth the effort anyway. That's what Sophia and Dante gave each other. Not rescue, not salvation, just recognition. The kind that says, I see who you are, all of it, the beautiful and the broken, and I'm choosing you anyway. That's harder than fighting, harder than surviving. It's the work of building a life instead of just enduring one. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the violence or the danger or the dramatic confrontations, but the quiet courage it takes to wake up every morning and choose love over fear. Choose building over destroying. Choose to be better than what the world made you. That's the victory Dante and Sophia won. And that's the one worth telling.